Hi. In reflecting on Section 4 and 5 from our textbook, PBIS may inadvertently contribute to disproportionality. During my reading, Chapter 4 acknowledges and briefly discusses habitus and cultural capital. Habitus is described on page 65 as a person's dispositions, tastes, preferences, and habits that determine how they view the world and their place in it. Habitus then becomes cultural capital to be used as currency to gain social advantages where that person or student is. When students are in school, the school then becomes the primary place for rewarding that because it promotes or validates the dominant culture of the school. Good administrators are reflective, acknowledging and incorporating the cultures of all of their students, not just the dominant one, and give them equal importance and recognition, which is not always the case in some school districts or schools. In Chapter 4, page 66, the textbook notes that schools essentially reward class specific ways that systematically disadvantage some people over others. The process is noted as seemingly invisible because of how it is ingrained in the way schools and society operate. Annette LaRue noted that low-income families tend to trust schools not demanding much from their teachers, which in the end disadvantage their children altogether. Uh, LaRue also acknowledged that higher income families usually were able to customize their children's education and negotiate with professionals to benefit their children and their individual needs. The concept of opportunity hoarding, which is introduced in Chapter 4 on page 67, is important because it describes the missing link between class and race based on explanations of an inequality. Opportunity hoarding is defined as a process where people acquire resources that are considered valuable, renewable, and subject to being monopolized. The process essentially produces inequality and racial uh, inequity and racial inequalities because it takes resources away from students that need them and also drive up the cost of education because they're providing services to people that don't necessarily need it but are receiving it because of the insistence of their parents. The Huntington story is a perfect example of opportunity hoarding that starts in the textbook on page 69. Cynthia and her team are a perfect example of opportunity hoarding because it shows the extent the parents would go through to get their way, even when their students don't necessarily need the services. Parents in that school district often go straight to the school district office to request special education services, which are rarely denied for them. The IEP meetings are frequently 2 to 3 hours long and ran by the parents. Sometimes opportunity uh, is given where they come in with an attorney. Parents often demand updates in technology like from an iPad 1 to an iPad 2 so their students won't get embarrassed. And when this happens, needed resources are again taken away from students that really need it. In answering if PBS may inadvertently contribute to disproportionality, it's important to acknowledge how the above actions only benefit certain students and their families. In reading chapters 4 and 5, the central question that arises is when pursuing equity in special education, does compliance matter in special education? It always seems that students that need special education services are frequently disenfranchised from receiving the needed services that can actually help them become better students. In reality, I do acknowledge and think that uh, PBS isn't always beneficial for every student because it's not done. fairly for everyone. It should be acknowledged that students' culture and backgrounds should be appreciated.